Well, from on this, let's welcome Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, or OUTA CEO, Mr. Wayne Duvenage. Wayne, as always, great having you with us. Good afternoon. So firstly, the latest now is that the NPA says that this affidavit is actually a leak and they were not intending for it to be in the public domain. So firstly, let's get your reaction as OUTA now to all these developments, and what do you make of the statement by the NPA?
Well, we've got to digest that, and whether it is a leak or whether it isn't, that's important to know how authentic it is. So we don't like to comment on documents that we're not sure now of the source and how authentic it is. But the developments are very interesting. They were long in the making. It's been a long time now on this whole VBS matter that we've now finally got some accountability with the previous chairperson of VBS. That's good, and a couple of others, but there's a number of others that we are still awaiting to see what is their fate, because they were also implicated and involved in this matter. And I guess what we're seeing now is what we always want. This is accountability for the gross wrongdoing, the fraud and corruption that takes place, because that's the problem that we have, that not enough of that takes place. So these are all good developments, but we need to see everybody else caught in that net.
And speaking of those sentiments, Wayne, I know you said in one of your responses to a publication that heads must definitely roll, to quote unquote you. In this instance, do you think we will really get to the bottom of this whole saga? We keep getting new and high profile names that are being added onto this list.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. So you know, the NPA has done its work. They must have to have rounded up Philip Truta and Matodzi and others, and they've been charged. Some have done plea bargain agreements to get to where they are. That's the one side of it. But they also mentioned, and we know that there were a number of other people in positions of authority that were involved, and until they round everybody up, you know, you can't have 2 or 3 people as the scapegoats when there are far more than that are directly implicated in wrongdoing. They all need to face the might of the law. So the quicker we can get that to happen, the better it is for civil society to believe and trust in the criminal justice system in South Africa. And so, yes, it's good that a few people have been rounded up, but the others should not get off the hook at all.
Absolutely, Wayne. And I mean, taking into account of what you've just said, what do you think of this affidavit? What do you think it has actually brought into light? Also taking into account the fact that at this stage, we know that it is Mr. Matodzi's version that still needs to be tested and proven in court, of course, about its validity. And also, what do you anticipate by some of those that have now been fingered in terms of their reaction, particularly to their names being added to those that were part and parcel of the collapse of VBS?
Well, those that have been fingered need to, if they want to defend themselves, if they want to distance themselves from the record, well, the NPA is going to have to prove to the public that they were involved. That can only take place through a court of law. And that's the only process that we can trust. So there's going to be a lot of allegations flying around, as we say, affidavits, which are either leaked or not true, and we want to unpack those still. And let's see where this process takes us. I think what invariably happens so often in these matters, and we've seen it in the Ace Magashule matters and others, is that you only get the clarity through the formal court process. And justice delayed is justice denied. It's an old cliche, but it is so real, because so many of these matters have been dragging on for so long, and so many allegations flying around that you just don't know, well, who is involved, because people are going to say, no, it's not me, I wasn't involved, I'm being wrongfully implicated, whatever it is. And then you don't know until the rule of law is applied and this is ventilated in court, and then we can see who's at fault, who needs to be held accountable, and who not. And so until the court process rolls on, as it has done it again in the Matodzi matter, he's now in court. These matters were ventilated, and he received his charges and a sentence of 15 years on a number of counts running concurrently. That's it. He's been charged now, and he's been found guilty, and he's going to go and sit in jail. That's what we want, orange overalls. But what about the rest? And until we get them into court and answer, and the judgment is made, we can only speculate.
And Wayne, I mean, what about those investors and those people, those elderly that live in poor conditions, that actually lost their monies? They might get justice, but obviously at this stage, we really don't think they might be able to get their monies back.
Well, this is where, again, the criminal justice system needs to do everything that it can to round up all the assets of those people implicated. Go and chase and follow the money, get the property, seize the assets, and sell them. You might not get all of it back because a lot of that gets wasted along the way, but you might be able to compensate half the people or everybody with half the value. So at least the loss is reduced. It's still a very, very bitter place to be. And again, this is, I guess, where we got to look at government and ask government, what are you doing to ensure that there are robust protections against the collapse of banks like this? It's not like the entire banking system has collapsed because of a major economic meltdown in the country. And even when that does happen, government steps in to alleviate the losses. But here is an incident where there's certain oversight by the state that has gone awry, and the state is also implicated now. It needs to ensure that it can balance, put in the checks and balances to make sure that it is responsible for compensating to some degree or another.
Would be very interesting to see how the state in itself, or the government under the GNU, Wayne, is actually going to deal with this, because I just wanted to ask you, I mean, I think you took the words right out of my mouth, about the credibility then of state institutions like the National Treasury, which has now been put at the center of such a huge scandal.
Yeah, and they should be, and they have a role to play. And the banking watchdog oversight entities, all of them, have a role to play to close these loops, to put in place robust checks and balances to ensure this can never happen again. So there's a prompt approach that has to take place. But there are others, not just those who are in the bank, that need to be held accountable here.
All right, Wayne, thank you so much for your input this afternoon. Certainly something that we are all watching with a very close eye as to what some of those latest developments will bring in terms of a resolution or just an end to a lot of questions that has been going on for quite some time. That was Mr. Wayne Duvenage there for the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, or OUTA, and he is the CEO.